Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. Some coaching malpractice down the stretch by Sean McDermott, who did not have a good week when a story leaked that he did a couple years ago, a pregame speech to incentivize his team with some 9/11 references without going into detail that were horrible and embarrassing. And, everybody makes mistakes. I get it. But when I watched the end of the game and him throwing the ball and not bleeding the clock out, and maybe that's a defensive coach not respecting offense, but to do that in Kansas City against Mahomes was like, timeout. Sean, I know the 9/11 story was a bad week. I know you're off. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. Now, they get away with it, but when you have a coach on the hot seat and you're a GM or an owner, you look for these moments sometimes to go, how do we pull the ripcord on this? Like, how do we get out of it? I honestly thought if they lost that game, John, maybe this is hyperbolic, you could have made a decision upstairs, end of the year, we're getting rid of him.
I thought the moment that Travis Kelce threw the ball back and the guy walked into the end zone before the play was called back, that was going to end Sean McDermott's Bills career. You couldn't end on the week that he had like that, especially because when the game started, Bills came out. They looked like the Super Bowl contender that we all thought they were coming into the season, at least some of us. And then the game just kind of unraveled from there. And they were in a position where it looked like they were going to lose. Listen, I've known Sean since I worked in the NFL. He was in Philadelphia, and I texted a bunch of people that worked with him as well. From a character standpoint, I always thought like his character was pristine, high-level guy. Now, I think some of the tight defensive stuff, you can't argue that. But some of the stuff that, at least in my experience, and other people that I know said that wasn't the guy that they were ever around. I'm not talking about Buffalo. I can't speak to that. I'm just saying in my experience. But today, he is just so dependent on this quarterback pulling plays out of his ass. That play, when he scrambled to his left, threw it to Latavius, who ended up fumbling. I know they got a little lucky that they recovered the ball because it went out of bounds. But that play sums up the Josh Allen experience. Like, no one else in the NFL can even do that. And obviously his ability to run with a violent nature. He's just a unique player.
We know what coaching does. Look at Denver, Nat Hackett to Sean Payton. Same exact player. Yeah. So we know coaching matters. If you put Mahomes in Buffalo and Josh Allen in Kansas City, you know who has the rings? Like, we know quarterback 65% of it. But we've seen Jeff Fisher and Sean McVay with Jared Goff. We've seen Brian Flores and Mike McDaniel with Tua. We know quarterbacks can be elevated by coaches. What you're watching is a defensive coach who cannot create a run game. Today didn't throw the ball down the field virtually at all. Josh Allen is carrying this franchise. It's a little bit like what's happening to the Chargers. The difference is Josh Allen's better than Justin Herbert. But I'm to the point now where I feel sorry that the prime year, and he's probably got 3 prime years left because he's getting the hell beat out of him. Josh Allen has about 3 prime years left. And then he's going to be Big Ben and Cam. He's going to hit about 32 and start aging.
I would say that, McDermott, I couldn't compare him to Staley. Like, he is a playoff level coach, but clearly it feels like a lot of people are going to act like this team, don't let them get hot. I'm not buying it. What we just witnessed, they easily could have lost the game if the guy's cleat is 6 inches, behind the blue line. So they are fly by to the seat of their pants, hope Josh makes some plays. They come out strong, and then they just kind of hold on for dear life. They've played in that same game 10 times this year. They've just, for the first time, lost a lot of them. Obviously, they play Dallas next week, but I'm not buying that, because a lot of people are going to say, if they get in, watch out. Like, I don't know. I do not see it with this team. Too much going on, because just because you win a game like this, which is important for their playoff chances, I don't think it changes kind of the talk around the coach, the franchise, everything that's going on, right? He was there was a microscope on him coming into the season, and then obviously they're going to struggle to get to 9 wins. So I think this franchise is just in a very, very weird spot right now.
Let's talk Kansas City. So when you pay your quarterback a lot of money, you have to get cheaper. And to get cheaper, you have to get younger. Tony. By the way, the Giants let him go. He was inconsistent. He was immature. Kansas City picks up Tony. His foot's offside, or they win the football game. And so what I watch with Kansas City are some coverage breakdowns with young defensive players and drops and mistakes by young receivers. So what I think Kansas City is suffering from is just youth. And this is the reality, is when you pay your quarterback what you pay him, you just got to get, John, you got to get younger. And, there's that fine line where the Rams go all in with old guys, win a Super Bowl. Now the Rams have a bunch of kids. By the way, young teams, Green Bay, Houston, Rams. You've seen the Rams get better as the season's gone on. Houston was bad today, but they've gotten better. Green Bay's gotten better. So young teams generally over the course of a season, they have these milestone games, these big jumps. Like an old team, kind of you know what you get. San Francisco, I kind of know what I get. I saw it against Dallas. I saw it, again.
Yeah.
But I do think, the Rams, Green Bay, you're like, oh, these teams are making big leaps. And I feel with Kansas City today, they lost because of Tony. They lost because of youth, a dumb play.
Well, Andy and Brett Veach have a little Al Davis to them. Like they will look past some stuff. I mean, Tony was a walking red flag. That there was a reason he was available, and they got him, I think, for a 3rd-round pick. And he's let him down multiple times this season, right, with inconsistencies because he's not a reliable player. But they had to do it because they're somewhat desperate. Offensively, right, they've lost to Green Bay, Philly, and Buffalo over about the last month, right? They scored 17, 19, and 17 points. Now, I think if you're big picture, if you're a Chiefs fan, you got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Over the years, you're going to be okay. Kind of feels like this ain't their year, Colin. I mean, they cannot generate anything offensively with the wide receiver. Rice is a good young player. Nice. But they're going to need more to go. I think this offseason, they'll be talked about with the Mike Evans and the older guys who are available. I think you got to ask yourself also big picture with Travis Kelce. He's no longer just in the prime of his career. And I think when you look, it's so easy to game plan it. Like with the Niners, it's like, we're going to take away Debo, you're going to take away Kittle, you're going to take away McCaffrey. It's like, we're just going to take away Kelce. Who else is going to beat us? Right? We'll live with giving Rice a touchdown every once in a while, whatever. There's not kind of that dual, opportunity to hit you from every angle with him and Tyreek Hill. It was like that last year. They were able to just squeak by and figure it out. Remember, they barely beat the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. They barely won the Super Bowl. And this year, it's kind of coming back to, kind of the mean a little bit. Offensively, they're just not very good right now.
One thing to support Kansas City, they're not very good right now. But boy, you look around, Jacksonville's reeling. Joe Flacco in Cleveland, there's limitations. Baltimore's leaking a little bit. They won today, but there's some leaks with that team. Jake Browning's a nice story. He's not a great quarterback. Miami is a team that Buffalo has always matched up well with, and I think Kansas City actually matches up well with. So I would say this, we viewed the AFC as superior to the NFC, but between San Francisco, Dallas, and Philadelphia, the top of the NFC, to me, John, is better than the top of the AFC. So I think Kansas City's got a shot just on Mahomes and coaching.
Well, they're just going to have to win these games like today. Right? In the playoffs, they're going to have to win a game 20-17. But for the first time, and honestly, it was like a lot like this last year, they could easily lose that game too. Like, is anyone going to be surprised if they lose a game 19-14 in the playoffs? Like that's what it's going to look like to the Baltimore Ravens, to, I would say that they're not going to lose the Cleveland Browns, but if that defense is on and Mahomes and they're struggling to score points, it's not inconceivable you lose 17-14. I mean, this Chiefs team is probably not having back-to-back playoff games of 28 and 35 points, right? So now they know how to play this way because their defense is pretty solid. Their guys have been through the wars, and they'll just need, if Kelce gets 6 catches for you, 2 of those might have to be touchdowns.